that's really been
Yeah, I'll
worrying
talk
me.
about that all day. My grandfather was a farmer. My stepfather was a farmer. Like I am,
Oh wow.
yeah, like I don't talk about it much, but I'm deep in farm politics for sure.
Yeah. No, like that's the thing uh that's been bothering me like for the longest time. We're gonna wait for people to get in here. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, I am so excited. Back again, Miss Lissa Reinhart, the guru, the knowledge, all of it. Because I was like, I've been flagging, and I said, man, I got to get somebody in here to lift me up and make me seem smarter. But for those of you just coming in, before this even started, we were talking about the stuff that's going on with our farmers.
Mm.
And so apparently we passed the deadline, another arbitrary deadline that Trump imposed, and it was on tomatoes coming in from Mexico. And I'm not sure as to the time of this, what they've done, the Trump administration has done with this, but uh, basically tomatoes would go up 20%.
Yeah.
And they're in everything from ketchup to
Mhm.
spaghetti. Like pretty much name a food product in America, and chances are it's either corn or tomatoes are in it at some point.
Well, and let's just all remember, right, that Ronald Reagan was the one who said that ketchup was a vegetable.
Yep.
And so now the Republicans are making it impossible for people to even afford the condiment vegetable that they stipulated
Right.
was good for American children. So, yeah. And then also, irony upon irony, you know what the number one condiment is in America? It's not ketchup, it's
It's
salsa.
salsa, right?
Salsa.
Yeah.
So, yeah, again, we are spiting our nose or cutting off our nose to spite our face.
We are.
It's beyond the pale. It's beyond ridiculous.
Because I think for a little while it was Sriracha, because I love Sriracha, right?
Oh, really? Oh, yeah.
Yes, I love Sriracha. Like I got into it in grad school. Like somebody was telling me, you know, hey man, have you tried Sriracha on your eggs? I'm like, what's a Sriracha? You know, and I tried it. I was like, oh, this is a game changer. Because the only hot sauce I knew was
Mhm.
Tabasco.
Tabasco, right.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me way too much of the military.
Mm.
So I just didn't use it. But then I tried Sriracha and I was like, I'm gonna put it on pizza, I'm gonna put it on hamburgers, I put it on everything for like
Yeah, it goes
like
on
4 years.
everything. It goes on everything. Yeah,
Right.
for sure.
And so when I think for a little while it was like the number one condiment in America. And I was like, because of course, it's amazing. And then ketchup's like, you know what? Get out of here. And now it's salsa.
Yeah.
Right. So which tomatoes are in, which is your salsa is gonna go like, and this is the thing that kills me. Because I'm looking at all this stuff with the farmers, right? With the corn and tomatoes. So today I was like, I got half a bottle of ketchup in the fridge, and I'm typically not a hoarder, right?
Right.
But even now I was like, oh, here we go. Well, let me go buy that big 2-pack.
Gotta go to Costco. Gotta go to
Yep.
Costco. Get that big ball of ketchup. It comes in two. I have them for my kids.
I just bought them today.
Yeah.
Bought them today because I'm like, great. I gotta have okay. I stocked up on Sriracha because of the pandemic because you couldn't get it, right?
Yeah.
And so then, because I was like, man, I ain't paying no $50 for a Sriracha bottle. I'm just
Well,
not
and
doing
then,
it.
just like look how that cascades, right? Because it's like, yeah, you
Yeah,
and I are like, okay, well, we have to pay more for ketchup. But then what about restaurants, right? So then that overhead increases, and then that small businesses, and then they have to raise prices, and then people can't go. And that goes back to even McDonald's. McDonald's.
yeah,
I know McDonald's is a giant mega corporation, but each individual McDonald's is a franchise, and that's how it works. And those small business owners who run those franchises have a very small, margin that they're making it by. And if ketchup goes up, then that cuts into that margin that is
yep,
keeping them alive. And I mean, I'm not really worried about McDonald's going under, but we're already underpaying those fast food workers. And it's difficult to make that argument that fast food workers should be paid more nationally. So
right.
again, it's this cascading effect that that impacts all of us. on both a micro and a macro level.
One, it's like the flack that Mamdani's getting when he talked about having public run grocery stores. And what a lot of folks don't understand is you have McDonald's or you have like basically you have food deserts.
Yeah.
And that's what you can afford because you can't like you can't run to a place and go get a bunch of produce because it's, you got to, like in New York, you got to take a train, you got to go here and here and here. So
And then you got to haul. I lived in New York for a long time too. Then you got to haul those bags home with you. And if you have kids, okay, it was hard enough for me to go from 82nd Street up to, the fancy Whole Foods on 92nd or whatever. Imagine if you're going, taking 2 trains with food for 2 kids. Like,
oh
that's
man.
ridiculous.
Yeah. And you're talking about, like, again, franchisees, all these folks, the margins are slim, restaurant margins are slim, and you're cutting into people that are closer to the workers line and not like high up.
Right.
And that, like, right now they said bushel of corn is $3.50, so it's getting close to the break even point, and it's potentially going to go past that.
Mhm.
Because we're losing contracts to Brazil because China's basically said, "Oh, okay, you want to play
No
that?
problem.
We'll go over here."
Yeah.
You know, and Trump, with more of his taco moves, are like, I sent them a letter. I sent them a letter welcoming them into the Club of America for the premier access. It's like,
This isn't Mar-a-Lago, sweet.
right.
The global economy. Like,
Like that's his. And here in a press conference, he said, "That's the trade deal." That's not a trade deal, dude. That's a letter for shitty commemorative plates. That's what that is. That's not a trade deal,
right.
But he's sending that, and now even Canada's just like, oh, what? 35% tariff? Oh, okay, sure, pal. Yeah. We'll
Yeah.
we'll wait on that.
Yeah, we'll wait on that. We'll pass. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. And for me, like, I don't think it's I don't I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But all this is too coincidental. Okay, right? JD Vance was part of this VC startup that would buy ag land on
Mhm.
cents on the dollar, right?
Yeah.
How do you get more agricultural land? You bankrupt the farmers. What is happening right now? We're bankrupting the farmers because
Right.
first we, canceled US aid, which 30% of small farmers' crops went to US aid. That's a
Mhm.
huge amount. I think they speaking of taco, I think they rebought that or whatever. Then
Yeah.
they canceled the improvement grants. Now, for those of you who don't know, my grandfather was a farmer in Ohio for many years. For his whole life. I come from a long line of farmers in Ohio for generations.
Yeah.
And we relied on that money, which is basically you say, I'm going to fix my fence or I'm going to put tiling in for drainage. And the government says, great, you pay for it, we'll reimburse you. And you do it and then they reimburse you. Or you're going to do, we did a lot of swamp land restoration, again, for increased drainage. And then they canceled those grants for farmers. Well, the farmers went up in arms. And again, Taco Trump, reinstated them. But for some people, it was too late. And that's very much the point. He is going as far as he can and then pulling back and going as far as he can and pulling back.
Yep.
And it's when we talk and then, okay, let's go all the way to, the logical conclusion of this. Food security is paramount to national security.
Mhm.
Small farmers are the lifeblood of this country. If we don't have small farmers, if we don't have family farms, if we don't have food security, then we don't have national security.
Yep.
End of story.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if we're importing more of our food, which the other country could just cut it off. It's just
Yeah.
like, oh, yeah. No, we're good.
Or
Yeah.
it's more, or the other thing is, more and more multinational corporations own the farmland in America, and they decide not to sell to American consumers, or because they have a monopolistic control, they choose to increase the prices to the point that most people can't afford it. Okay. And then talk about we're all in a food desert.
Well, speaking of like, so here's the thing. Speaking of national security, right? Smithfield Port, its biggest shareholder by far is Chinese, right?
Yeah.
And part of when and again, where a lot of these military bases in our country are located, well, they're located in usually the cheapest land they can get to build the base, right? Because that's how the government operates, lowest bidder, blah, blah, blah. Now, with some of these farms going under, Chinese investors are buying up land around our military bases,
Oh my God.
right? So it's
Yeah.
just like, okay, I'm sure that's fine,
Yeah.
no
That
problem.
sounds like a good idea. No, I mean, uh, and it's just, and the levels, I don't want to think this much about this stuff. I never, but right now I'm researching the Nazi propaganda and paramilitary militias in 1930s New York, which is kind
Oh, wow. Okay.
of,
All
yeah,
right.
1930s New York. This is like
Yeah.
1933 to 1935 is my specific area of interest at the moment. And the level of sophistication of that espionage like blows my mind, right? Like the
Yeah.
amount of shit that they could figure out and like the amount of information that they could transmit to Nazi Germany is astounding. You know,
Yeah.
imagine what they can do now if they have our military bases surrounded by highly automated farms like.
Yeah.
And by the way, Frederick, something like, did you hear this? I don't remember, but it's some absurd number. I'm going to say 80, but that's a very, very conservative estimate. 80% of all of our long cranes in ports were made in China, and
Hmm.
apparently have some software that like enables them to be remotely controlled.
Oh, sure. Like, we've seen that with um Tesla, not Tesla, but the Cybertrucks that
Mm,
Elon could just remotely kill him. Like
mm,
it's like he finds you, it's like, okay, and shut it off.
yeah.
Or and that was part of the big so like with Starlink,
Mhm.
when the Ukrainians were basically gonna annihilate the Russian fleet on the Black Sea, which could have ended the war in the first year, right? Because that would have really hampered their logistical support, getting into Ukraine and
Yeah.
then expanding that theater. And Elon Musk killed Starlink, so they couldn't use the drone attacks. They couldn't use like torpedoes, and coordinate that because he said, "Well, I just wanted there to be peace because so people could stop fighting. Then we would have peace." Oh, okay, bro.
That's
Yeah,
how
I'm
it
sure.
works, sweetie, and you know it.
Yeah,
So,
of course he knows it,
yeah.
right? And it's like, oh, okay. So you just put your thumb on the scale at a critical moment, you know.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I made a piece about could Trump take or nationalize or take over Starlink and um what's his other company? Starlink and the other one he got.
SpaceX.
Yeah, SpaceX. There it is. Thank you. And I was like, okay, because I was talking with a friend of mine. He said, I think this could happen, blah, blah, blah. And but the conclusion we came to, and the scary thing is, all these national security, this 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 infrastructure and these resources are controlled by one guy
Mhm.
who's a ketamine addict
Yeah. Yeah.
and an anti-Semite and a Holocaust denier and all this other stuff, and he controls that. Like, and then you got Peter Thiel with Planeteer, and freaking Stephen Miller. It's like, and I'm like you. I don't want to think about this
I
stuff.
don't wanna think, and, we didn't used to have to think about it, and it's,
No.
I guess that's also part of the problem. We should have been thinking about it and talking about it before we had to, because I'm all about, taking responsibility for my actions and what I could have done more, and we all know that democracy
Yeah.
dependent on engaged electorate, and I've always been, like, pretty engaged. I vote and, of course, and I give what I can to candidates, and I try to be informed, but, did I in the past regularly contact my congressperson? No.
Yeah.
Did I know who was my city council member? No. Did I really think about the implications of this or that bill coming down the pike? No, because I trusted that my leaders, elected leaders, were managing that for me. And in a lot of ways, right, we have to do that because we don't have time in this capitalist economy to fully engage in our government. And we have,
Yeah.
trust. But that's part of the problem, right? It's like it's systemic, of course. But at this point, it's reaching a critical tipping point. And you mentioned Peter Thiel and Elon Musk, and I'm not the first to make this point, but it is so interesting to me that they're both touched by South African apartheid. And that is the more, it's not a comparison.
Right.
It's not a correlation, right? But there are so many things in common between anti-Semitic fascists in Germany in the 1930s and 40s and the apartheid regime. And it's being exported to America. And then, but I just want to add, going back to the research that I was mentioning before, it is fascinating and shocking, and yet not at all surprising that these Nazi agents in the 1930s were specifically making inroads in and successfully making inroads with the GOP.
Yep.
So this is not a new development. This is 100 years in the making takeover of the GOP. And we all look at Trump and we're like, what an anomaly. This is crazy. And then some people are like, well, the Tea Party back in the 90s, that's where it started. No, this started in the 1930s.
Oh
And
yeah.
this is the culmination of that generations of work, which to some extent is terrifying. And to another extent, it's like, okay, if this is the best they got, we can fucking kick their ass. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, because you can kind of look at the parallels, because in the 1920s, it was the resurgence of the Ku Klux Klan, where they were a national movement of like almost 3 million members.
Yeah.
Massive. And then there was a scandal involving the Imperial Grand Wizard. I think it was in Missouri. He's from Missouri, and he ended up, killing a young woman, after he sexually assaulted her. And that was a national scandal, right? Rightfully so.
Yeah.
Right. So it took down a lot of the organization, and they kind of went back to the South. And then, it became less of a national movement. But I wonder, because the thing is, if you join the KKK, right, even in the 20s,
Yeah.
and suddenly it's faux pas because of something not dealing with your racial ideology, what do you naturally transition to after a cooling off period? You go to the Nazis, right?
Right.
Because, you can almost, it's like, wow, this is very similar. Okay, I'll go over here now.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was more socially acceptable. They had, less weird uniforms. Like
Right.
KKK, just like that's too,
Right.
that-
Got the hood and everything else. Yeah.
yeah. It's
Mm.
giving weird. Okay. But yeah. And, then, it was, it had like that particular movement had, embedded itself in a language that was more socially acceptable than the KKK. And because of that, it was able to infiltrate like more potentially progressive urban environments like New York City and like Los Angeles, both of which were hotbeds of Nazi activity in the 1930s, which you wouldn't think, but in fact it was. And they had a lot of support in these places because it had this like air of sophistication to it, in a way that's kind of, and I guess like the MAGA movement is this weird blending of the two because it's both super gaudy and grotesque while also trying to celebrate. I forget who said it, but like Trump is the poor man's version of a rich man, and the stupid man's idea of a smart man.
Yeah.
And so it's this sort of odd melding of those two worlds coming together, which is in itself disgusting. But I love how MAGA's falling apart right now. I'm always like a little, we've heard this before, right? And
Yep.
my heart has been broken many, many times, but it seems like it's kind of real this time. I mean, at least there's some fractures happening.
It's interesting, because again, it's to your point. Trump had never seemed to go down before, right?
Yeah.
It had never seemed to, like it was almost like he's Teflon Don, you
Right.
know, in a lot of ways. And I hate to say it, it's like, okay, you guys have never cared about abuse towards women,
Right.
right? That's why I never took the Epstein files very seriously. Like I didn't think it would be because I remember when they said they weren't real, right? The memes like on Substack and everything else were like, "Oh, it's not real." Okay, boss. Like, and it was
Yeah.
just they were going to shift, right? And then they didn't shift. And I think that's what Trump thought, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Is well, because anytime he tells them it's like, you know, it's like the sun's in the sky. The sun's in the sky. Okay, that's not the sun. It's an orange Julius. It's an orange Julius.
Right.
Like they back whatever he says, even if it's like and then here we are. But he said 3 months ago it was this. It's like you shut up, liberals. You don't know
Right.
what you're talking
Right.
about,
You have Trump distortion or whatever they.
right? Yeah, you got
Yeah.
Trump
Whatever.
TDS, Trump
Yeah.
derangement syndrome. How dare
Yeah.
you? Blah 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 blah.
Trump arrangement syndrome. Yeah.
But for this one, it's
Mhm.
like they're like, no, we want to see him
Yeah.
because they wanted to see him because they thought it's going to be Bill Clinton.
Right.
It's going to be Hillary Clinton eating babies for whatever reason.
I don't
You
think
know,
I cannot believe that Bill Clinton is in there. I do not think Hillary Clinton ate babies. I don't think that's real.
I don't think so. I mean, you know how hard it. I mean, you know the problem is with eating a baby. Like it's terrible. There's not
It's
much. There's not much meat
not,
there. Yeah, and I mean, and then the screaming. Ugh, it's
ugh,
just
too much. No, I don't share that. I share that. But
that's
yeah.
gonna get
But I'm
that's gonna
sure
get
there
clipped.
are a lot of liberal people in those files. Like I
Sure.
have no doubt that they're on his client list or were at his parties or whatever. It's that just doesn't surprise me. It saddens me, but I also believe that those women and girls deserve justice no matter what.
Yes. Well, yeah. I doubt Barack Obama's in there, but if he's in there,
Right. If
like
he is, well, he just whatever, but I doubt it.
it is, it is. I seriously doubt he is. You
Yeah.
know, because if he
I can
was,
imagine Andrew Cuomo being in there though.
oh, I thought that today. I thought when I saw his I'm in it to win it and he's wearing his like, Cubano shirt in the park,
Yeah.
and it's just like, dude, can you just go away? Like
I know.
just go away. We don't
Yeah.
want you. We're done. You know. It's
Yeah.
like,
We're kind of getting off, like, we're kind of going on a lot of tangents, but I just wonder what his end game is there. And yeah, oh, well, okay. Because I mean, I feel like the New York City, being New York or running for mayor in New York City is a swan song for so many
yeah.
people, like Andrew Yang before him. I mean, I love his forward party, but he did not run a good campaign. Eric Adams won, but then disgraced himself rather quickly. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's an interesting subplot in the political landscape at the moment.
I think it's twofold. I mean, I was kind of being a little flippant there, but one of it is money, especially if he gets to keep his war chest,
Yeah,
you know. So that's part of it. It's a payoff. It's the same reason Joe Manchin. I know it's federal versus city and whatever, but usually you get to keep your war chest if you're running for office. But like Joe Manchin's like, I'm running for president. It's like, bro, you're not running
yeah,
for president. You're just trying to get a payout. Like you just one final payout and then you're done. But also, I think for Cuomo, uh, I think part of it is these people that do those things and are at that level are so narcissistic. They really believe that they can win because they have before, right?
mhm,
And so they think like, oh yeah, I mean, I like because again, what was it? Gosh, I can't remember his name. He was the running mate for Al Gore.
Oh,
Lieberman.
Edwards, John
No, no,
Edwards.
no, Joe
Oh,
Lieberman.
Al
Lieberman.
Gore. Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
damn,
yeah.
I can't
Like,
remember.
yeah, it was Lieberman. It was Joe Lieberman.
Lieberman. Oh,
And remember, was it Ned? What's his name? Beat him in the Democratic primary
yeah.
in the state for the Senate. Same thing with Lisa Murkowski when she ran as an independent for a little while because she got beat in a primary and then ran as an independent, and Joe Lieberman won, and so did Lisa Murkowski, right?
Mhm.
I think it was
Mhm.
Ned Lamont, if I'm thinking correctly, the name. But
That
yeah,
sounds right, but my
yeah.
political name recall does not go back that
Oh,
far.
I'm actually surprised that I pulled Lieberman out, to be honest. Normally today,
Lieberman, like, even though I forgot for a moment that he was Al Gore's running mate,
yep.
he's for some reason like etched in my mind because I remember I was working on the just primaries in New Hampshire in the when Kerry ran, but before he was the nominee, and I like ended up accidentally standing right next to Lieberman in a hotel lobby, and it was like the most awkward possible interaction I'd ever had.
I'm
It's like,
that was that's kind of how it was when I met Harold Ford Jr. when I was
yeah.
in Tennessee. Dude, he's just weird. He's just like it was like, I went up to talk to him and we were at an event. It was at a school. And it's like, the weird horror movies when they kind of do the,
Yeah.
and it was literally like, as he turned, it was, I have Ford
Hello,
Jr.
young
And I'm
feller.
just like, whoa, come on now. It's like, bro, we good. You're at a community college. What are you doing?
Oh, that's
So
hilarious. Yeah.
yeah, I've met, yeah, politicians get really weird, man. Some of them do, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Trump can do what he does. But I honestly, I didn't expect the Epstein files to
Right.
have that effect because what was it? E. Jean Carroll, like that was dismissed, right, by
Mhm.
MAGA. Like whatever. All the accusations, all this stuff, and suddenly it's like he might be a pedophile.
Right.
Duh. Why do you
Right.
think he was run out of New York? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Well,
mean, he talked about it on the
yeah,
Howard
and there's
Stern
tons of
show.
things with that. Yeah. I mean, I think it's kind of twofold, right? Like we'll see. We'll see what happens. But MAGA has to a large extent like really shot itself in the foot, or at least
Yeah.
not MAGA, but Trump. Because they
Yes.
folded the Epstein files into their sort of campaign, not only for the presidency, but also for a lot of down ballot tickets, right?
Yeah.
Like
Done.
MTG. She is all about the Epstein files. She constantly talks about them, goes on and on and on. And it's also folded into QAnon. Like their whole reason d'etre is finding pedophiles, whoever they are. Whether or not they believe that Trump is in the files, they want to see the files. And I bet most of them believe that he's not in the files. And I'm concerned that he's being deleted from the files right now, right? Like, what is going on? Why don't we have them? Why is it taking so long? Who has it? And where are the copies? And will there be any accountability? Because there's a world in which the files are released, but in redacted form that we don't know are redacted. To that end, though, I don't want to abandon my entire trust in that uh, in the national security sort of structure. However, again, like from a historical perspective, it is both problematic and progressive. And here's why. Because in the 1890s, the beginning of the American industrial age, there was this big movement within conservative Christian sort of social circles to decry and try to address sexual slavery by, of women and girls. At the time, the age of consent in some states was 7. In
Oh,
other states, it was
Jesus.
10. Yes, that was the age of consent. So you could marry a 7-year-old, you could marry a 10-year-old, and you could certainly have sex with them, and you could, on and on. It's not rape. She consented. She's 7 years old. She's 10 years old. So they worked, a lot of women worked on raising the age of consent from 7 and 10 to 16 and 18, as it is now. And that is great. The other side of that is that it was predominantly focused on preserving the chastity of white women and girls. And and specifically Black girls and women were not included in this sort of formula of whose chastity, whose dignity deserves to be preserved and protected. And so it's that thread, I think, that we see coming out in MAGA, because the majority of Epstein's victims were white girls and women. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be protected. They obviously, all girls and women deserve to be protected from sexual predators. But I think that this is just so interwoven in the historical narrative that MAGA is a sort of iteration of. And that's why it has this staying power.
No, I think you're right, because every time you see Trump with Jeffrey Epstein and those photos with young girls, they're always, sickeningly like Ivanka, right? They're blonde, white, like he has a type. That's his type, And the crazy thing though about this now is like you have people like, so the White House has threatened MAGA influencers that if they talk about the Epstein files at all, they're going to lose access to people in the administration, right? So Rick Wilson talked about that. What's fascinating though is you have guys like Matt Walsh who are horrible people. Like so the thing, the whole they're transing the kids in school, right? That was started by Matt Walsh. That's how that got into the zeitgeist, right? So he was talking about, and I think he was saying this was happening in Boston, right? And so he's been beating that drum for a while. He's also the guy that said, it's better for some girls at 14 or even 12 to get married, right? And yet him, who has said that, has come out and said, no, if there's pedophiles, we need to see them. We need to see the Epstein list. And he was saying that to another MAGA influencer who was like, well, maybe this is all a Democratic hoax. Like, doesn't matter. We need to see it. Matt Walsh is saying this. The guy who's like, oh yeah, marrying a girl married at 14. Well, that's better than, basically he said something to the effect of, well, her married at 14 is better than her being a slut. Right? Like that was his reason.
Just have no response.
Yeah, what do you say to that?
I just like make crazy eyes to that.
You just go, huh?
I don't even know what that means.
It's like, I'm at a loss. I don't know how to handle this.
Matt,
I'm at a loss. I don't know if I should handle this with words or violence.
Or just run. But no, that now that you bring that up, right? It is so, I hadn't really thought about this before, but it is so like the preservation of what women are for and who they are for is so interwoven with the patriarchal structure of MAGA that of course this is driving them crazy, because having someone sexually exploit young white women and girls is antithetical to the larger patriarchal structure of those girls are reserved for this other purpose, not for this. You are controlling them in a way that we don't want them to be controlled. We want them for marriage and babies and unpaid domestic labor. And I'm just sort of ideating this right now, but there is something in that, because there has to be something more to this sort of, explanation. Go ahead.
I think you're on it. And I didn't even think about that until you brought this up and started talking about it. Because if you look at the narrative and a lot of this, and again, Matt Walsh classifies himself as a fundamentalist Christian.
Right.
Like a hardcore Christian nationalist. That's where he comes from, right? So for absolutely for him, women are for they submit to their husbands,
Right.
they're married, they have children. That's it,
That's it.
right? And so when you have men just taking them as sex objects,
Right.
especially white women, right? And I think you have a good point. Like if this
Oh,
had
if
been
this
women
were
of color,
black women and women of
oh yeah, if it was
color, I
black
would not
girls,
care for 1 second. I mean,
no,
give me a break. Yeah.
no, you're right. Like if it was Trump with Jeffrey Epstein and it had been women of color or even Asian women, like, nah, it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, sure.
it,
And
yeah, it's just like,
because
well, that's
from
just
the
what
white woman's
guys do.
perspective, that's what those women are for. That's what those women are for.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right because if you look at the rhetoric that's coming out now, they say, well, if they're abusing women, what they're really saying, if they're abusing our women, we
Right.
need to know about it
Yes,
because
because
women are
those
possessed.
are that's our property. That's not your
Right.
property. That's our property.
Those are our women,
Yeah.
right? As in the skin tones women, right?
Right.
I know it's like, and I think that is 100% valid to say. I think that's where, because that explains why they're like not letting this go
Right. Yeah.
because it has nothing to do, like, because again, E. Jean Carroll, they didn't care about her because, well, she's liberal, right?
Right.
You know, she's essentially like, a sex and a sex trader, you know,
Yeah.
well, it's feminist. How dare she? So it's like whatever happens to them is like, well, yeah, where's your feminism now? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, or,
You know,
they don't believe her, because she was one woman by herself in in a dressing room. They can convince themselves that she was participant to that assault. Whereas when you have girls and women, locked in rooms or on an island or isolated, that who do not have agency, that becomes impossible to explain away, as a she should have said no. But yeah, and the other thing that's really colliding in the MAGA sort of cognitive dissonance, right? Because all these things are coming together, all these things are kind of imploding because MAGA is all about the common persons, right? Or really the common man. I mean, beginning with what was Palin's guy, Joe the plumber. Remember that guy?
oh God, Joe the
Yeah,
plumber,
Joe the plumber.
who wasn't even a plumber.
He wasn't a plumber, and then he got arrested for something. I don't know. He's in jail now. It was something bad too, but
Yeah,
it's supposed to be the party of the common man, but somehow they elected as their dear leader a born billionaire. Do you know what I mean? And so how is that possible? How does that square? Well, most things don't square with MAGA and it doesn't have to. That's sort of their whole MO. But now you have in the Epstein Files, MTG coming out and others. I love how quiet Bobart is recently. But anyway, going back to my point. Um, you have in people like MTG saying when these elites are abusing women, we need to know. And so now you do have this class consciousness coming to the fore of MAGA in a way that is confronting their own hypocrisies.
mhm.
And it'll be interesting to see if that starts to have any kind of cascading effect on not only Trump, but the people who he surrounds himself with, right? I mean, what percentage of his cabinet are billionaires? Like 90% of
Yeah,
them?
like all of them,
Like
like
all of
pretty much.
them?
Yeah,
And yeah, I think the one silver lining, and this is kind of a different point, but not silver lining, but the one place I think that we can see inroads with AOC and Bernie on their, no oligarchs tour is that there is a class consciousness in MAGA. And how can we connect to those folks, those voters in that capacity? And is this Epstein Files scandal and the issues that it brings up a moment of potential, conversion or at least connection?
because the difficult part to kind of to wrap your head around this, right? And I have discussions with my friends all the time where, I've got friends on the side of the left who are, well, we need to care about MAGA. And so they'll point to, like, if you want to change somebody's mind, you have to show empathy, you got to show support, and yeah, it's like, well, they're in these areas that are gerrymandered and they're voter suppressed. The only source of news they get is Fox News. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, and I get all that, and they've been economically devastated, right?
Yeah.
It had, like, one video I saw about, it was a woman in North Carolina, and I'd been in her. It was near the Outer Banks, and it was like I'd been through the area that she was living in,
Mm-hmm.
and she was talking about. It was very nostalgic, and like, here's this textile plant, and everybody I knew that I went to high school with, it was like most people were they couldn't wait to go work in the textile plant. I'm like, stop it. Nobody wants to work in a textile plant, but like,
Aeronautics maybe, but textiles no.
right, right. And so she was talking about it, and it was a major employer in the town, and I understood where it was like, when this left, it devastated our community. And so I understand of, like, when you have a politician like Trump that says he's going to bring back the jobs, right? He's going to bring them back, and we're going to revitalize the Rust Belt in America. I mean, I drive through it every time I go to New Mexico on trips for business. I drive through Pueblo,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and I see the rusting hulks of factories that used to be there that are not, like, it's a ghost town,
Yeah.
right? The sad part was Biden did bring back with the Infrastructure Act, green technology and stuff like that. Not enough, but it was something, right? Then the other part of me is like, you got a cell phone, don't you? Right? You can do your research, can't you? I do. So why can't you? Why is it the question then becomes, I think, where's the pain threshold
Mm-hmm.
where these people wake up?
Yeah.
Where, like, and I wonder if the Epstein Files is the thing that gets them to turn when they start looking at, hang on, because the one difference between, and we talked about Nazis in this,
Mm-hmm.
what the Nazis did when they took power, they're coming out of the Weimar Republic. Things are awful, like,
Mm-hmm.
economically, they are horrible. Yeah, they took away civil rights, but economically, they made things better for people. They did infrastructure projects. They built the Autobahn. They made life meaningfully better for a lot of Germans. Not all, of course,
Right.
but a lot. Trump seems to be making life worse for not only all Americans, but specifically his own base.
Specifically his voters. Yeah, it's really it's very bizarre, but it's also, let's be clear, okay? This is going to sound fucked up, but I'm going to say it anyway.
That's fine. That's what Taco Tuesday is all about.
Okay. But I have more in common, right, with Trump and those cadres as
Yeah.
a hyper-educated, middle-class, privileged white person
Yeah.
than his voters do.
Yes.
Okay?
You're closer to him than they are.
Than they are. Far, far closer. And his policies are absolutely robbing them of any possible hope of having, forget the American dream, but just job stability,
Yeah.
housing stability, food stability. So in terms of, like, where that pain threshold is and where they turn on him, I have to imagine it's getting close. And you see it again, going back to where we began this conversation with the farmers. But here's the problem, right? Because are we going to have an FDR come up next? Because that's what happened with Hoover, right?
Mhm.
He was the business guy. He robbed from the poor. He gave to the rich. And then the backlash was progressivism. The
Right.
backlash was FDR building the middle class, the WPA, and so on and so forth, which we can thank so much of what we have now directly for. But my concern is that do we as progressives have a plan and a way to then speak to those voters? Maybe not, dyed in the red wool MAGA, can't get off, Newsmax, shove it up your nose all day people, but the folks who are just trying to like feed their kids. Like, are
Yeah.
we talking to them? Do we have open lines of communication and dialogue with them? Do we have a politician that can reach them? And, I'm sure folks on here will disagree with me on both sides of what I'm about to say, but I like what Gavin Newsom's been doing lately. I think he's doing a
Oh, I
good
love it.
job talking to folks. But do I think he's the man for that job in particular? No.
We have to. The thing with Democrats is so I did this when I was organizing. I'm a friend of mine would organize, right? And he organized in the state of Virginia. And he was at his county party, and they're sitting around figuring out trying to things to do. And he said, "We need to go and be active in the community,
Mhm.
right? We need to get our on the hey this county Democratic Party cleans up this roadside, and then we go clean that up, or we do things that make the community better, and people see us doing that."
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh no, we can't do that." Why?
Mhm.
Democrats. That's why Mamdani won in New York, because he told the voters of New York, "I know your problems, and here's some plans that I am going to make your lives meaningfully better." That's the important part of that is meaningfully. What
Yeah.
is going to make your life meaningfully better? What? Because a Democrat can come out and say, "Well, I have a 1.7 tax cut on this specific light bill. If you were to
Right.
get this light, and it'll save you $15.78 over 5 years." Nobody cares about that.
Right. Yeah. And nobody has time to like notice that either, you know?
I'm a mother of two in New York City. I have to go up to 96th Street from 82nd Street.
Yeah.
And I got two kids that I can't leave at home, and I got to drag groceries back. How
On
are
the
you
bus,
going to,
not the
on
subway, on the bus.
on a bus,
Yeah.
how are you going to make my life meaningfully better?
Right.
We're going to open a city run food grocery store 2 blocks up.
And also, by the way, I am so pissed that people are so mad at city run grocery stores because I'll tell you what a federally run grocery store is. It's called Walmart.
Thank you.
We subsidize Walmart, all of us, because they don't pay their workers enough. So we pay for their welfare because they can't afford to live. Like,
Yep.
how about we just pay the workers a living wage so they can contribute to the economy, so they can have a dignified life, so that the city makes money also, and that we have healthy food for everyone? Like,
Thank you.
how is that more socialism than giving socialism to the Walmart CEO, C-suite, and stock owners? Like, and how do we? I'll be curious to know what you think, but like, are AOC and Mondani and Deja Fox, who race I need to check in on, and AOC, are they? Do you think they are making inroads in this sort of class consciousness discussion of the billionaires are your enemy as the working people? And again, this ties back into the Epstein files when we're talking about the elites. And now it's becoming, well, what if not just Trump's, but Trump's cabinet is in the
Yeah.
Epstein files? Hmm.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
how can we create a 360 portrait of the problematics of this wealth disparity that's only growing
Right.
uh, in this country? But I don't know. I don't know if they are making inroads. But the thing is, it's like the other problem for Trump and his base is that they are stealing from their supporters. They're hoping that their supporters will continue to rally behind them. And at the same time, the white male majority of this country is disappearing minute by minute.
Right.
Uh, and there's no changing that.
Nope.
So, yeah.
And there's only so far you can take. So the thing is, it really comes down to is not can we turn all of MAGA?
Right.
How much can we slice off? Right.
Yes.
Because like even with all the shenanigans that went on in 2024, right?
Mm,
Let's just say it straight up. Trump only won by like 1%.
yeah.
Yeah, the swing states and everything else, but those margins were narrow. You keep slicing this off because again, these people are like so many people, which they don't follow politics like we do, right?
Right.
They're not in it like we are. So they're like, okay, I'm going to vote for this guy because Joe Biden didn't do enough to help me
Yeah.
in this last iteration. Because they're not thinking of like, well, you got to think about we came out of the pandemic and we got to, blah, blah. They don't care. They're like, my rent's gone up. I can't afford it.
Yeah.
You know, like prices are too high.
Right.
This guy is telling me that he is going to bring them down. Okay, I'm just going to vote for him.
Yeah.
He's not doing that. He's not like, and it's kind of it's almost crazy for me when they say he's not delivering on his promises.
No shit, Sherlock.
Right,
But at
but
the same
they don't. But
time,
that to them, they're serious, right?
yeah, yeah,
And I think that for a lot of people, that is going to have a blowback.
yeah.
And so then they're going to start like, well, damn, all these corporations are like, that's the other thing too, is like, so I'm going down to New Mexico and I'm, starting business there. We're trying to get stuff off the ground. I'm in entertainment, blah, blah, blah. The thing that I hear all the time there is, hey, are you planning on staying? What are
Mhm.
you doing to build local economies? We're willing to invest because I'm at the level I'm not getting billionaires, right? I'm barely getting maybe millionaires, right?
Mhm.
What are you doing to build what are you doing to bring money and jobs here, right? And so I have to think about it like that because what people are sick of, and you saw this in Appalachia, is
Mhm.
the extraction
Yeah,
economy,
extraction.
where an entity, and that's exactly what you're talking about with Walmart. They're not building communities. They're not paying employees to like a living wage so then other people can open restaurants or open, sporting, like they open their, like all these other things in the community, right? Because that money that's being generated from the folks that work at Walmart, is pouring into that community. Same thing with Dollar General. They're just
Yeah,
extracting
right.
and pulling it out. And that's why these communities are impoverished. And so that's what people are asking me when I'm going to New Mexico is what are you doing to bring money here?
Right.
Right.
But like that's the whole I mean, I think about this a lot in terms of America has always had the American capitalism has always been an extractive model, and
Yeah.
that began with mining, and labor and slavery. Right? It is extractive. You're extracting things from people, and we've moved on to extracting like the value of people's lives, and that's in this gearing people towards hyper consumption, whether that's of goods and services or food, that you can eat so much of because it has so little nutritional value and it's not actually food, it's drugs. So that's actually extractive. And then now we have this new model of extraction, which is data extraction. So we're all, you and I are participating in this right now. Like our data is being extracted by this app, which will then be sold to any number of other multinational corporations for whatever purpose they have. And we are all like little walking mines of data that is being extracted from us all day, every day. And when we look at, why is Trump doing this? Why is Trump extracting the last bit of wealth, right, from his base? Well, that's what else are they going to do? They have no other model to
Right.
follow. And so, yeah, you look at the murder bill, which I got that name from you, but I that's the only thing I call it now. And it's
Yep.
like, my God, they are willing to literally kill their supporters
Yep.
to get
Just
more money.
to get more
It
money.
is, it is, it is shockingly depraved.
And it's not
Um,
even it's not even like money like in Breaking Bad where you're laying on a stack of it, right? Where it's just like, oh, it's just it's bytes on a screen in a spreadsheet.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really change your life in any meaningful way.
In any
If
meaningful way. In any
no,
meaningful way. Yeah. And
if Jeff Bezos saves $4 billion on taxes, what does that change his life?
no.
You know, but if he were to give that money to his employees, life changing.
Life changing. Yeah.
You know,
You know, yeah. So I wrote the biography of Jeanette Rankin that's coming out in November, and I'm working with the Jeanette Rankin Foundation on the book tour, and they are an amazing organization. They provide unrestricted grants to women over the age of 35
Mm.
seeking to achieve their educational goals, whatever they are. Those grants are, they can use them for childcare, for rent, for electricity, or for tuition. Whatever they need, they can use that. Grants are in the amount of $2,500. Okay, that's not like a lot of money, but the median income for one of their grants recipients is $28,000. That is a 10% increase in their income. That
Yeah.
is life changing. That is life changing. What if Jeff Bezos and all these people gave $2,500 to every single mom trying to get their AA, their associate's degree?
Yeah.
Not only would their life change, but all of our lives would change, because suddenly we have an incredibly educated populace of women, which is my particular, interest. But yeah, you wonder, what is the end game when there is no measurable benefit to the people who are doing this. And I guess that's more of an existential question, not particularly interesting, but it's also like, when is this fever dream of working folks in this country gonna break to believing that they need the billionaire class to survive? Like, when does that end? Because that is, I guess, the basis of not only what Trump is doing, but also what the Democrats are not doing. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's the
I
big
love,
problem.
yeah,
That
like,
is the
I
big
love
problem.
been, I wish my first son's middle name is Roosevelt. I kind of wish it was Biden. Like, that is my deep love for the man.
Right?
But it's like, when are we going to get the political will to tax the billionaires at a reasonable rate? Like, and why is that so hard? And when are the Democrats going to wake up and say, if we don't do this, then the lies that the promises that MAGA continue to tell and to just make up, will continue to sell, because they are selling the same lies in a lot of ways. They want to improve their lives more than MAGA does, but not enough to actually do something about it.
I think the reason, like, to answer your point, like, I had a note a while back where I said, like, there's a certain point when you reach systemic or institutional change, organizational change. You can't be polite about it,
Right.
because the person sitting in the seat that's been there for a long time, that has the seniority, they don't want to give it up.
Yeah.
And so now you got to be rude about it, and you got to push them out.
Get out.
Yeah, sometimes,
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it cordially, and sometimes people, you see this with quarterbacks in the NFL. You see this all the time. People, they still think they have it, and then you got to say nah, and you got to push them out.
Yeah.
And I think that's why people like the party elite, like the elites and the money class, they are terrified of Mamdani.
Yeah.
Because Mamdani is, if he wins New York, then you're going to have a bunch of, like, I think there was somebody that said, here's what the Mamdani primary win does. And it was an organization that promotes younger people getting in politics.
Mm-hmm.
The day after he won, they had over 1,500 people want to sign up and asking questions. Hey, how do I run for something?
Right.
Right. And so if he wins in New York and he starts implementing what he does, and it starts having a measurable impact,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to see more Jasmine Crockett's. You're going to see more AOCs. And
Right.
they're not going to be like, well, Nancy Pelosi said I couldn't be the head of the oversight committee. I guess I'm not going
I
to
guess
be.
I'm not.
They're going to go, no, we're doing this,
Right.
right? You're going to see people run against Chuck Schumer. You're going to see people run against Christian Gillibrand. You're going to see people start taking on that establishment. And what I think there's part of MAGA that's the racism, right?
Mhm.
And then there's part of the light MAGA and then the Trump supporters that are going to say, we just want change.
Right.
We want change. We want something other than this because it is not working. And I think because again, you get Bernie Sanders is too old, right? You know, nothing against him. He's just too old to run that kind like
And he
to
doesn't
go.
want to.
And he said, yeah, exactly. He said,
Yeah, he's
I'm the
improving and
bridge.
working to lift the next generation up.
Right. When that next generation shows up, and I think they're starting to show up, and they start saying, like, all right, we've had enough of it's time for y'all to get out.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, it's like, appreciate you, Nancy. Appreciate you, Jerry Connolly. Appreciate y'all, Steny Hoyer. We appreciate y'all. It's time to go. It's time to retire. Right. Because you don't have, like, you don't want to go in and hit someone in the mouth. Jasmine Crockett does. AOC will do it a little nicer. Even Jamie Raskins will, right?
I love Jamie. I
Yeah.
love Jamie.
And I think there's another guy in Florida, Merkowitz or Manowitz, something like that.
Yeah.
But we got guys like that are laying in the cut that are good, like Jason Crowley,
Mhm.
who's in my state, right? We have a lot of great leaders. It's just we have to we have to make people's lives meaningfully better, and it's okay to be raucous. That's why Gavin Newsom's, you know, I hope he's learned his lesson in the sense of, well, I had Charlie Kirk on my podcast and Steve Bannon, and I tried to talk to them. And now it's just like, he called Steve Bannon, he went from that to calling Stephen Miller a fascist cuck.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what you do,
Yeah, I mean, I think Gavin, right? Gavin comes from he doesn't come from the tech world, but he is like the Silicon Valley governor. And
Yeah.
what do you do in Silicon Valley? You test things out. You see,
Mhm.
does this work? And then it doesn't work. You're collecting data. You pivot. You try to do something else. It's um, basically you just try to do the simplest formula of the final product that you want to do. See if it works. If it fails, go back. See if it works. If it fails, go back. So he's just road testing another strategy that
Yeah.
is getting more traction. So I don't really care. I mean, we can talk about Gavin Newsom or whatever. I don't care that much, but he is like just figuring out what is going to work for him in trying to become president. And he's
Yep.
very good at it. And I think he is in some ways building off of the strategy that Obama kind of pioneered in a different way. Obama was interestingly the first iPhone president and really embraced that technology in ways that Mitt Romney and God bless him, John McCain didn't, and that's why he won. And in a similar way, Gavin Newsom is embracing not necessarily he is embracing new technologies on Substack. He's embracing new social media, but he's also embracing the way that technology is built in building
Yep.
his campaign. So that'll be interesting to see how it progresses. But I want to go back to Mamdani and the next generation of political leaders, because one of the reasons that Mamdani was able to win, and in fact, I would say the reason that he was able to win, was not only because of his progressive policies and his promises to meaningfully change people's lives, but also because of ranked choice voting. And if you know me, you know I'm an evangelist for ranked choice voting. It is like the most important thing to me in politics. I talk about it
Right.
all the time. But for those of you who are here and don't know what ranked choice voting is, it's basically very simple. Where instead of a winner take all, you vote for me or you vote for Frederick, you can rank. Frederick is first, me is second, and Newsom is third, and then they take the aggregate of all of those, and whoever gets the most total votes wins whatever office it is that they're running for. And what does this do? It makes politics more civil, and
Mhm.
it encourages coalition building, and it also gets rid of the excuse for women and people of color and other marginalized folks in particular to sit down and wait their turn, because you're not the spoiler. It's not a winner take all. It's ranked choice. So, as there's, DC just moved forward on ranked choice voting, Boston moved forward on ranked choice voting. And I really think that if we are going to change our politics, we have to change not only the way people vote, but how they vote. And again, I'm going to plug Janet Rankin, who is like my hero, and in 1914 was campaigning on a promise of implementing ranked choice voting. And she said, this is before women had the right to vote nationally. She said it's not enough to have the vote; we must have the machinery by which we vote. And she was talking about ranked choice voting and other meaningful electoral reforms that we have to implement, and we have to insist that, Democratic leaders put on their platforms, because without these, we cannot actually elect the people who represent us. And folks, you know, like Chuck Schumer and like, you know, I don't know, Rick Scott or whatever conservative who's been in power forever, maintain power, because there is no structural way for them to be challenged. And we have to be able to change the leadership when the leadership needs to be changed.
Right. 100%. I mean, 100%, and I don't know what that looks like. I do know if Democrats come into the 2026 midterms and they deliver the same kind of weak sauce that they've been doing,
Yeah.
it's not going to go well.
No.
They have to make now. Can they do anything with Trump in power? No. But what you can do is you can go out and hit him in the mouth every day.
Yeah.
That's why I like when I'm talking about the Epstein Files.
Hmm.
You know, do to them what they did to us with Hunter Biden's laptop, with Hillary on Benghazi. Just keep hitting them over and over and over. It's just like, yeah, we're here to work on corn prices, but that Trump's probably in the Epstein files. I don't know why. If he's not, I don't know why he won't release it.
Right.
I
Right.
I mean, what was it? I think it was Cato the Elder did that, where he was every time he would give a speech in the Senate, didn't matter what it was on, he'd say, "And Carthage must be destroyed." Like he just kept saying every single. It didn't matter what it was, and I
Right.
think I think we should have
And he
Democratic
was right.
senators.
God damn it. Carthage did deserve to be destroyed. Just kidding.
It did, but I mean, it took them 3 Punic Wars to do it, but they got it done.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, I would love it if I mean, anytime they're debating any bill, Democrats just, and that's why I'm against the repeal of the stipend for Section 8 housing in the areas in the Southwest and blah, blah, blah. And the Epstein files must be released.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just every time, like, it doesn't matter. Just say, and everything with that. And the Epstein files must be released. So,
Yeah. And it's the Republicans just give so much fodder for that,
mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
okay, Bill Clinton had an affair with Monica Lewinsky, which I really believe was far more problematic than most liberals talk about, or which
Oh,
I would,
yeah, I'm there too with you.
yeah. Um, and the Republicans just constantly, hammered him with it as the party of morality. And I know that there's this like cognitive dissonance within MAGA where it doesn't matter to them if their leaders cross line after line after line, but that's not true of a lot of voters. And then we can go back and say, well, Kamala Harris actually did a pretty good job of that. Then why didn't she win? And that's a different discussion. That is layered with patriarchy and sexism and deeply seated racism. Not to mention structural, you know, problems in the electorate. But just because I would say something the strategy didn't work in this one instance doesn't mean that it's not effective, particularly when you combine it with, people's lives not only not improving, but actually becoming more difficult.
Well,
So yeah, I agree with you. I don't want to hear about Epstein personally all day. I get it. But we do need to somehow break through to low information voters. Um, and at the same time, I want to go back to your point on the importance of grassroots community activism.
yeah,
And I specifically want to talk about, women's reproductive rights and lack thereof in so
sure.
many states. And, I don't know if you follow this at all, but as women's reproductive rights are restricted to the point of just manslaughter, if not murder, in
Yep,
states like Missouri, Mississippi, Texas, so on and so forth, there's this growing movement of women to provide other women with mifepristone, which is the abortion pill.
yep,
And in order to do that, it really takes a word of mouth campaign.
yeah,
And so you have these very interesting communities building up, particularly in rural areas
mhm,
where reproductive care is the fastest to erode, of women helping each other get reproductive care. And I will be very interested to see how those networks function in the coming special elections and midterm elections.
yeah. I would too, because I mean the thing that's kind of terrifying with all this is, and again, it's breaking along racial lines, right?
Mm,
Because like we started this conversation, Epstein's more about white women and their chastity because of white supremacy versus black women, right?
right.
So the women that are getting arrested for, say, having a miscarriage and then flushing, you know, the miscarriage down the toilet are
Yeah.
typical black women. The woman in Georgia who was used as basically an incubator was a woman of color, right? And you can start looking at. I think there was a case in Texas, another one where she had a miscarriage and then threw the baby in the like threw the remains in the garbage, and then she went to jail for that, right? Black woman, right? So it's
What else are you supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's like, Jesus. Anyway,
But well, it's because again, it's like, what are you supposed to call? Who are you going to call,
who are you
right?
going to call? How are you going to know how to call them? I don't know who to call. Look at
No,
me on the internet right now. I don't know. Like,
right? But again, it's one of those things of like it's like stop and frisk, or it's like
yeah.
speed training, right? Um, and like they certain people get stopped and like in New York got stopped and frisked more often than other people, you know. So you're not going to hear about you know like a woman that looks like you or a woman married to someone like
Yeah.
in an upper class neighborhood that has a similar issue and goes to her medical doctor and says, "Hey, I had miscarriage." Da da da. Like, okay, they're not going to report it, right?
Right. Right.
Because how did that get? How does that stuff get out,
Yeah.
right? Who are they? And then the question is like, where are they getting this information from? And this is the problem when you start chipping away at those rights in order
Mhm.
to protect women. It's never been about protection. It's been about control,
Control.
you
Yeah.
know. But I am curious to you because you take a look at, say, South Carolina, where they had, women who were in the Republican Party at the
Hmm.
state level stand up and try to protect because they had a case of a young girl or young woman who was like 17 or 18 and almost died from sepsis.
Hmm.
Right. So then they said, no, 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 we can't criminalize this and da da da. Well, they got voted out. So now the entire state legislature is all men.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no, they're like at least on the GOP side,
Right.
there are no women in South Carolina in state office that are on the Republican side. It is all men.
Right.
So I'm curious to see how after after a fashion, with the way it's going now, how that's going to shake out.
Well, yeah, and I mean, speaking of dead women, and girls, let's talk about, Camp Mystic. And that, you know, the GOP male-led city council refused federal funds to update their flood warning system that led to the death of, what is it now, 117 people. I can't remember if it's 117 or 28, and also 27 young girls, uh, presumably girls from conservative, highly connected Texas families. And so why is this connected, right? Because what is the GOP's response to Camp Mystic or to Texas floods in general? Not much. Okay,
No,
Bondi put on, her rescue Barbie outfit from Amazon, went down there 3 days later. You know, FEMA is nowhere to be seen. Forget the National Guard; they're all busy in Los Angeles doing,
mhm.
nothing. And so the lives of these girls from conservative families that were lost is not being addressed by the GOP. And
Not
this
on.
is actually where I feel we have, and so the same is true, right, of the lives of the women, Republican women and girls who will die because of restrictions on uh, reproductive access in these states. So when are these Republican women going to reach their threshold of we are not being represented by this party anymore? When are they going to change? And when we talk about, where there is room to make inroads and room for conversation, to me, it's with white women, particularly because they are really, when we talk about who is losing the most from Trump's policies, among their supporters, it's the women.
I got to say one thing really quick. Normally I don't do this, and I hate giving trolls attention. There's a guy on here, Neotown Crier, that I guess wants attention. You've seen him. So he just said something about Gavin didn't turn on 2 dams. I'm going to tell him why he's a fucking idiot. So first of all, sir, the dams are broken up into federal and state and local in California. So one, you're wrong on that. Two, there are no like it wasn't a water issue in Los Angeles during the fires. It was a pressure issue. They had they had enough water, right? But they had so many fires raging out of control that they didn't have enough water pressure for the certain hydrants. But what your fucking moron president did was he had the dams release billions of gallons of water that could have been used for cropland that now they don't have. So sit down and shut up unless you want to learn something. But anyway, I'm going to ban you after this live, so don't worry. You know. But anyway, that's all. I just had to address that. You know.
Please, yes, because I had friends and family lose
Yeah.
everything in that
Yeah.
fight.
And
Yeah.
and when Trump opened the dams, it didn't do a thing. It
Of
didn't
course
do it.
not.
No,
Yeah,
it just wasted billions of gallons of water. It flooded farmland, and now farmers in Northern California do not have water for their crops this summer.
and it's going to be a dry year. It's El
Yeah.
Nino, another El Nino year. So the reserves that we had from the white, because I'm in California, the reserves that we had from the past 3 rainy seasons are unnecessarily depleted.
Hmm?
It's a real problem. It's a
Oh
real
yeah.
gonna be,
Yeah.
and uh, it's gonna impact everybody's um, food costs.
Yep. And that's nationwide, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. So
And right. And it's because unfortunately, I mean, and we can go on and on about like, like crops and everything else and da 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 da. It's like but yeah, I mean, there's always one that wants to show up and just be like, oh, look at me. It's like,
he's actually been following me. This is the second one he's been on of
oh,
mine.
is he?
I'm flattered. I have my own troll.
Oh, that's it. He's here for you.
Yeah, he's here for me.
Oh, he's such a cute little guy.
I know.
He's just a guy. Well, you know what? We could run you can run an experiment. Maybe he'll learn something, you
He says,
know.
yes, indeed.
Yeah,
That's that.
maybe he'll learn something instead of being an idiot,
Yes,
you
that
know.
was lovely. I invite you to learn. Education is a lifelong pursuit.
You
Um,
know,
but yeah.
you nicer than me. I mean, so I'd just be like, "Oh, there we go." You know.
Oh, I will. I'm definitely gonna block him after this. I don't need that in my life.
No, God no.
No.
Absolutely
Although
not.
I do have a friend, God bless her, who engages regularly with the trolls in her feed because she's like, I'm the only voice of reason that they're ever gonna hear. And I'm like, Holly, uh, you're doing God's work, but take care of yourself.
You know what? It's like I only got so much energy. I only have so much, like I just don't. It's like nah. And then it's just like, because
Right, but
then
that's like goes back to what we're talking about, right? Where can we engage in dialogue? Where does it work? Where does it not work? If someone comes to you with the whole point of being antagonistic and
yeah,
just gaining attention and no interest in learning, then there's
block 'em.
no opportunity there. But
No.
I've been watching. I don't know if you know who Loretta Ross is, but she was one of the founders of Ms. Magazine. She is a intersectional feminist.
Oh, I know Miz. I didn't know
Yeah,
who
yeah.
founded it. Yeah.
She was one of the original editors, and she has this, TED talk about calling in instead of calling out.
Mhm.
Um, and so when someone, for instance, says not something that this person said, but something that you find problematic, she says, and she's just to preface this, she's a Black woman in her, I want to say 70s, maybe
Right,
80s.
right.
So she's speaking from a point of wisdom and experience. But she encourages folks, instead of calling them out, to say, I know you. I know you're a kind person. My understanding of you is that you are curious and kind and empathetic. And what you just said doesn't really square with how I see you. Could you explain that a little bit more? Or what did you mean by that? And just invite them to dialogue and also invite them to be their better selves. And I know that sounds really cheesy and maybe a little bit pie in the sky, but so many of us go to family functions. I know I do,
Mhm.
where they're on the other side of the proverbial aisle, and our really, like, our families are being pulled apart by this. I've lost family. I've lost contact with family because of their
Same.
support of Trump.
Oh yeah, same. Yeah, 100%.
And they then passed away during
Uh,
COVID, from COVID. And
oof.
we have to find a way to be able to talk to them. And so I really, uh, really appreciated Loretta Ross's insight, on that note. So that's kind of perhaps neither here nor there, but just
No,
to
no, no.
share.
I mean, I think that's worthwhile. I mean, I think it's worthwhile to say that. Um, for myself, you know, I always tell people, and this is, part of this is. I'm not saying this is the way to go because we all have things to work on, right? I always say, listen, I was raised with the teachings of Jesus Christ, but I ain't him.
Mhm.
So you ain't no, you ain't getting no compassion from me on this one, man. You know, some listen. I'm good with people. Some people, if they're ready to talk and they're ready
Yeah.
to be open, it's like okay, we'll talk. I'm here for you. Let's have that discussion, right? I mean, Joe Walsh is proof of people can grow. You
Well,
know,
yeah.
listen. We got work to do.
Yeah. I think Joe Rogan is an interesting
thing
example.
No, you didn't, Town Cry. You didn't work on no Hillary's campaign. I don't even want to hear that. I don't even. Stop lying. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Just stop it. Ain't nobody care.
Phone calls,
Yeah. Basically, that's the equivalent of saying, "Well, I have black friends."
Right.
It's like, okay, yeah, great. It's like nobody cares if you could prove it. Nah, nobody cares. Like, you just be a good person. That's what we want to see. To quote, Larissa quoting, what was it, Loretta? What was her name?
Loretta Ross. Yeah.
Loretta Ross. I know there's a kind person in there. I know it. And I know you can do better. Even though you're acting like a freaking jackass right now. Yeah, I messed it up. I already messed it up. I messed it up.
But listen to me. In all seriousness, I watched my beloved godmother, who was a grandmother to me. My parents divorced when I was very young. She was my father's cousin and she was my mother's best friend. And hers was the only house where we could be at with both of our parents.
Yeah.
I watched her get brainwashed by Fox and turn into, MAGA.
Mm-hmm.
From one of the kindest, most thoughtful people who we were talking about Jesus Christ, like who, really showed me the empathy and forgiveness and the possibility of the teachings of Christianity in its best form, to becoming completely brainwashed. And that's what Fox News and now Newsmax and the Manosphere is doing to people. It's brainwashing people. And I think we do have to recognize that they are absolutely brainwashed. And there was a point in which, when MSNBC was launched, people are like, oh, this is the antidote to Fox News. This is going to be, the leveler. The leveler is not another talking heads news network. The difference is public education. And that's something we need to invest in, because people need to be able to have critical thinking skills. And we see time and again that those critical thinking skills in the American public are being eroded. So I know this is not a popular opinion. It's not about compassion and empathy for compassion and empathy's sake. It's compassion and empathy for being very strategic about reaching people, helping them to see how they've been brainwashed, and help them to get educated. And again, whatever this guy's name is, maybe, or woman, person, I don't want to assume, maybe that's not possible for them, but we can't write people off simply because they have been brainwashed over the course of decades. And it is, we talked about brainwashing in the, Red Scare era in the Soviet period. That has nothing on Fox News and whole,
Oh, and Cambridge Analytica and all the stuff that's pumped out on social media. I mean, it's one of the things that when I talk about trying to reach young men, because again, like it was, I said on the Gen Xy Live where, it's like the reason I consider myself an expert on men, especially young men, is like I have probably worked with and led personally more men than what like your individual woman will meet in her entire life,
right,
or other men will meet in their entire life. I'm literally thousands, because I've worked at 5 hubs: DCA, Philly, Detroit, LAX, 4 hubs, and an outstation, right? And I've led a department that had over 600 employees, most of whom were men. I've worked in male heavy fields. So I know how men talk. I know how they talk to each other, especially at the blue collar level, and where they're at and how to reach them. And I've seen these same guys on social media share this red pill and manosphere stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to talk to them and say, hey, man, you're not going to get what you want from this. And maybe that's the answer there is like, and I like what you said about having compassion as really for an end in of a better society, not necessarily for that individual.
Right.
Because there's a lot of times that I'm just like, I get frustrated and I'm just like, you know what, man, if he was in front of me, we'd have a problem, but that's really a failure on my part, right? Because I don't have the empathy and I don't have it in that moment.
Well, and also it's not about that moment, right? Because we're talking about the pain threat, and I get it. I'm not a nice person. Like generally, I'm not really walking the walk. We're talking the talk. I'm working on it. But we're talking about this pain threshold. And when do people start to come over? And
Right.
is our attitude like, fuck you, you fucked around and you found out, now, eat shit? Or is it, yeah, that they don't have your best interest in mind and they don't have my best interest in mind. And let's get together and try to form a more perfect union. And I think there's a balance there, right? Because as you were saying earlier, at times you have to be rude to get done what you want done.
Right.
And at other times, you have to come at it in a different way. I also just want to say that, like, I kind of hate it when people do this because it's so often disingenuous, but it's also true that I can only say this because I'm like a super privileged white person, and that they're not trying to like literally kill me. Like if I were an indigenous person or a person of color or an LGBTQ plus person, um, it is very much more life and death than it is for me.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, I think it is incumbent on me to acknowledge and leverage that privilege. And I do mean that. I hope to mean that.
Yeah. I mean, the hard part of it is, so like, so you're getting into very much like, the realities of political organizing, right?
Mhm.
And so, like, let's take Joe Walsh, for example, right? I like Joe. I don't like his positions on a lot of
Mhm.
things, but I like Joe because he and I are very passionate about defending the Constitution, about stopping these fascists who want to curtail our freedoms. When it comes to, he has unequivocal support as of right now for Israel. I do not,
Right.
right? There are certain positions that he still holds that are more conservative. I don't hold those positions. And so part of me is like, look, I look at it like this is very much like when people like, because one person commented when I shared one of his posts, is like, well, he's for genocide in Gaza, so he needs to be out of the party. It's like, okay, well, that's the position. We're going to get rid of a whole lot of Democrats, and now we're screwed, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm worried about like, I'm, there's a house on fire over there,
Mhm.
right? And then ours is burning down around us.
Yeah.
We got to stop the one burning first, and then we can have it. Like, let's stop that one. Maybe we can do both at the same time, right? We don't need to keep giving arms and all this stuff to Israel. We can do both, 100%, and we can advocate for that. But it's like on this issue, on the Constitution and our rights, I was like, stand with me, but I'm going toe to toe with you on this one.
Right. Right.
You
Right.
know, and I think like, you know, that's how we have to we're gonna have to, like, even now. I mean, you get with like, well, Bernie screwed Hillary. It's like, that's in the past, man. We can't. It doesn't matter.
Sorry, I have to plug in my phone.
No, you're good. Yeah, I know. It always runs out, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh, sorry, everybody. Awkward. Well, almost fell off my chair. There. Success.
Nice. But no, they like that's part of the part of the issue is like, you know, you can't we're gonna have to come to a place where we can't worry about old scores.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you want to come over here? This is what we're about.
Right.
You know, it's like now they're not going to agree with everything we have. Like, we can't. So, well, you have to agree with this, 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 and this. It's not going to happen.
Well, and I mean, you look at right. Okay, I don't mind making this comparison. This is pretty for me, pretty cut and dry. Okay, Western nationalists and MAGA are very much analogous to the Nazis in Germany. Okay, what happened? What happened after World War II? Did all the Nazis die in World War II? No.
Mm-hmm.
Their government just got bombed out of existence. This is somewhat tangential.
Yeah.
After World War II, right? A lot of people, myself included in the past, thought that the Marshall Plan happened and they rebuilt Europe and everything was great. Or not great, but like stuff was happening. That's not true. The Marshall Plan didn't get passed till 1947. For 2 years, from 1945 to 1947, small nonprofits were, just trying to like put beams and bomb shelters where people were living because that's all they had. That's all they could do. And meanwhile, right, you have a real clear and present danger of another fascist movement growing out of the rubble pits of particularly Germany, where you already had the Nazi infrastructure that remained and the people that were not killed in the war. And what did you have to do? You had to have an opening for people to come and change. And so particularly, I wrote about this in my first book, First the Front, about Dickie Chappelle, who covered these efforts, particularly on behalf of the Quakers, who would set up these friendship houses. And people would come in and they would they had realized what they had done, not only to themselves and to their country, but to, the Jewish people and, people with disabilities, Catholics, and so on and on and on and on. All the people that were sent to the ovens, they finally came to realize what they had done was deplorable and wrong. And they would come in and they would be weeping and they would say, I'm a Nazi. I was a Nazi. I don't know how to move on. And the Quakers would say, thank you for letting us know. What do you want to do to rebuild your society? Because to linger in that past, right, there has to be truth and reconciliation. There has to be, taking of responsibility, and there has to be compensation for those people whose lives were affected by you. But you also cannot live in a society, live in a country, and penalize people forever. There has to be some kind of structure of forgiveness. And that's just true. And I think, as we hopefully watch MAGA collapse in on itself, I want to be part of that solution of finding ways to bring those people into the fold. And again, like going back to Bernie and AOC, I'm very curious as to your opinion. Do you think that they're actually, reaching folks on this class consciousness level?
I think so. And the thing is, I think I think you'll kind of come along with me, being that you're historically trained. Is I think a lot of people that make a mistake with these things are, they think like,
I just want to interrupt. Sandra Stefan said, I'll never forgive the GOP. And like Lindsey Graham, Tom Tillis, Tuberville, Trump, Stephen Miller, none of those people deserve our forgiveness. All of them deserve to go to jail for the rest of their lives. And I would love to send them to, their, mini Auschwitz down there in Florida. That would be great for them. I will never forgive them. But for the people, for the individuals who have been exploited by the GOP and have bought into their lies, like, and who see no way out of it, is there not room for us to have dialogue with them?
I think we have to. I mean, other than, you can't ostracize people forever, right?
Yeah.
You can't. I'm a little more compassionate than you on this. I would not send them to alligator Alcatraz. we have perfectly good supermaxes in Colorado, and there's always license plates that I mean, look, I mean, I'll set supermax. That's fine.
Okay,
You
you're
know,
very sweet, Frederick. You're really sweet.
yeah. I mean, we will give them, we'll give them the Bible. You know,
Yeah.
and they can read that to their heart's content. You know, but I'm not going to be as cruel to them. As now we could pipe in an LCD video, right, of alligator Auschwitz and say, "Would you rather be here?"
Would you rather be here? Yeah.
And then when the bell rings for them to go to their shift, we'll have written on the top, "Work sets you free." But sorry, I know, I know I'm horrible. I'm sorry. Oh my god.
You went there. You went
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So I mean, I'm not gonna be abandon all hope ye who enter here, but well, I just, it's like I would love to see Tom Tillis, making a license plate, that says "Work sets you free." I'm not gonna be as cruel to have like, Make Work Project in the early part of the 20th century when the French experimented with full employment where they dig a ditch and then fill it back up just to have something to do, you know?
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that, you know? But I'm okay with chain gangs. That's fine for those folks. That's fine. You know, it's kind of like as people pass by the road, like you could say, "Hey, that's what happens when you become a fascist." It's
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
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 But to your point about AOC and Bernie, um, and this is someone who's historically trained, uh, things don't happen just all at once, right? It's little seeds here and there that get planted, they bloom, and like our movements kind of just they build and build and build. So I think it's important because one of the friends I talked to back in 2016 when I talked about class consciousness and I talked about socialism online, I was the radical,
Right.
right? Like people were like, "Man, you're out of your mind. Like, what are you talking about? Like class consciousness is like you're a Marxist, like you're in a Soviet or something." It's like, no. I'm now like center left with
Right.
some of the stuff that people say, right? Where I'm just like, I just want to tax the billionaires out of existence. I don't want to nationalize Amazon, and give it to the state. I mean, it's not a bad idea, you know.
Let's think about it. Let's have a committee on that.
It's not, there's a good socialist. Let's have a committee. That's a good socialist. You know, all I want is like I don't want us to turn like where we start having violence because the billionaire
Yeah.
class and the incompetence and their sycophants have just made things so bad.
Yeah.
People start lashing out and reacting. We're already starting to see violence against ICE agents, right?
Mhm.
And I'm not John Fetterman defending ICE agents. I think
Did
that
he really?
yes, he did. He did.
Uh,
You didn't hear about that?
no.
Yeah, Fetterman, he defended our brave ICE agents are out there doing their job. And here's the messed up part. His wife and her family were undocumented,
Yeah, I know.
and it's like, brother, just retire.
I know.
Like
I
just
think he's
retire.
broke. I know, and I a lot of times people are like, you can't like explain their misogyny and racism and on about their, mental disabilities or, bipolar disorder or autism or whatever, but the people around him really need to get him off the stage.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's just it's starting to get sad now. And it's like, I mean, I'm like, I want to for me, where I'm more radical is like I want to abolish the entire global war on terrorist apparatus,
Mhm.
homeland security, like, go back to more like like less militarization of our law enforcement.
Well, yeah, I mean, that started with Bush, and yeah, we have to like do a whole other live about
Oh
the
yeah, that's a
yeah,
whole. But but to your point, but again, like people are looking at things like the way I'm surprised at how people are looking at those things, or they're out now. They're not afraid of the word socialism anymore. And a part of that is the younger generation. They didn't grow up with the Red Scare. They didn't grow up with nuclear annihilation. They're watching shows like Fallout and going like, I don't really understand this. Like, why would this be like? This seems fanciful. It's like, no, this was like a possibility when we
yeah.
were nuclear annihilation was a thing, right? Like it could happen, you know. And I remember, I mean, even we had drills in Texas where it was we had the nuclear drill, you
Well,
know.
I think also you didn't have right examples of democratic socialism that were functioning.
No,
Now you have Scandinavia, to a lesser degree, France, where you have social systems in which people can get health care,
mhm,
can, get assistance where they don't go bankrupt getting a college education.
yeah,
And American young people are saying, wait, why can't we have that? We are the economic engine of the world. And
we can't have this,
we
right?
can't have this. Why is that? But then, you know, that goes into the mass militarization also of our, GDP, where a huge portion of that is spent on military expenditures and more.
When
And
we're not in any wars,
when we're
we're
not
not
in
in,
any wars.
and we want to go over $1 trillion a year, and we're
Yeah.
not in any wars at all.
And, again, just to reference my book, uh, Winning the Earthquake by Jeanette Rankin, she voted against World War One. And then she spent the interwar years lobbying for disarmament because she saw that, as she said, if you prepare for war, you will get war. If you prepare for peace, you will get peace. We are, as a world, preparing for war continually, and we need to start preparing for peace. And that's just, it's a simple equation, and we have
Right.
to change the variables. But Frederick, I have to go because I have to feed my children dinner. This was a lovely conversation.
Yeah, no, it was great. Like, I was gonna let you go. I was like, should I tell her we've been on over like an hour and 45 minutes? Like, I'm gonna see if she goes too. So why not? But again, yes, we got to do it again. Thank you everybody for showing up. We definitely appreciate you all. As always, I love it when you're able to get on a live.
Well,
Thank you
thank you
so
for
much.
having me. It's always so great to chat with you. I really appreciate it.
100%. And as always, keep the faith and defend democracy. I'll see you guys later.